Good morning and welcome to the NWR Small Cap Virtual Conference. Next up, we have IkeGPS. IkeGPS delivers end-to-end solutions, cloud and mobile software, field tools, services and support to solve specific problems for electric, utility and communication companies, signage companies and geospatial users. The company serves customers that range from the world's largest telco companies to the largest electric utilities in the US to thousands of the smallest local sign shops. Glenn Milnes is the CEO and Managing Director at IkeGPS and will present today. He's accountable for the company's overall strategy, performance and growth. Glenn joined IkeGPS from Number 8 Ventures, where he was the investment director. In this role, he was responsible for a portfolio of early stage, high growth tech businesses. Before entering the business world, Glenn played professional cricket in New Zealand, England and the Netherlands, representing New Zealand at various levels. I'll now hand it over to you, Glenn, but just before we do so, a reminder to those that are attending, any questions, just submit them through the Q&A box down at the bottom and we'll ask them at the end of the presentation. Thanks, Glenn.
Great. Thanks, Simon. Thanks for having me, and thanks to everyone for joining the call today. So I'd just like to talk through the various aspects of Ike, and fundamentally, we've built a platform that dramatically speeds up the process to deploy a network, so be it a 5G network, a fiber network, or an electric utility network. We're a US headquartered business. We focus completely on the North American market, and we do that because of some pretty significant market tailwinds. So we're at the very start of an investment super cycle into building both fiber and 5G across the US market, and they do that. The picture in this slide is a 5G antenna, and 5G antennas predominantly are being attached to power poles. They're being connected with fiber, and so they're building upon the assets of the electric utility. So again, we let network funders do this in a much faster way, and we also let electric utilities collect, analyze and manage their power poles in a better way in terms of data quality and also safety. And again, just for context, more than 70 or 75% of fiber and 5G infrastructure in North America is expected to go up on overhead assets. Around 200 communications companies that are in a race to deploy their network as fast as they can so they can win their underlying customers, and around 1,000 engineering companies that support those communications and cable companies that are building the networks themselves. So that's one problem that we solve. The second market opportunity for us, we believe the communications segment represents a very substantial opportunity for Ike over the next 5 to 7 years. If we take a 10 to 15 year view of the North American market opportunity, we've got more than 3,200 electric utilities across the United States. They own the poles. They typically have 5, 6 or 7 different companies attaching things to their power poles, and they face a pretty similar problem in terms of aging infrastructure and the need to maintain a high quality standard of data around again, analyzing, collecting and managing their poles, and that's what our system allows them to do. And it really matters. You hear about the catastrophic wildfires across the West Coast, or also the big power outages on the East Coast when a hurricane blows through. Our platform lets these utilities understand the engineering and structural integrity of their assets. So if we take a 10 to 15 year view, we think this is the even bigger prize from Ike, and our goal is to become the standard for the way that they manage these pole projects. There's some more detail on the slides which will be made available afterwards around those macro market components that I just spoke to. So in terms of what do, we've built a platform, a technology platform to make these processes much faster and to make the quality of the data that these infrastructure companies use higher and more reliable. So 3 parts to our products and also our revenue model. So we build field tools and field software that's been specifically built for collecting and analyzing power pole information. Our customers pay us an annual subscription for access to our tools and to our field tools. We've got a cloud-based software platform. So our customers collect raw information about their assets in the field. It syncs up to our cloud-based system where we use software to do the analysis of that raw field information. And in doing that, we charge a transaction fee for the assets that come into our platform. And then the transaction fee is associated with a number of detailed reports and engineering reports that we send back to our customers so they can move to the next part of their process, which would be to construct a network or to carry out some structural analysis or engineering design. And I'll show some detail around what these reports look like in practice a little further on in the presentation. So why do customers adopt the Ike platform? If we're talking about the communications market, it's simply speed. That these folk are in a highly competitive race. They're deploying upward of $350 billion into fiber and 5G over the coming 5+ years, and they need to go fast. And so we let them do that. We've got a lot of proof points across the industry now around more than doubling the pre-construction process in terms of speed. And we've also got some other benefits that matter a lot, less so to the communications companies, more so to the electric utilities around much safer work practices, reducing personnel, reducing costs. Our system requires 75% less engineers to be in the field to do their work. And we reduce things like permit request rejections, which is something that stifles the speed of an attachment, a fiber attachment or a 5G attachment. And we're now working with some of the biggest names across the industry. So we very recently announced that that the largest shared communications infrastructure provider in the US has standardized on Ike for all of their pole work, both internally and with their external engineering contractors. And there's a range of other company logos there. So AT&T, which is the biggest communications company in the world, Verizon. We have all of the electric utilities on the west coast of the United States, the investor-owned utilities, using the platform. But we've really only just got started in terms of where we think the opportunity sits for our business. In terms of how that's translated to growth, two charts here, one looking at our revenue, gross margin and operating cash flow trends. Probably the more important chart, in our minds at least, is the one on the right. So the blue segment of this bar represents transaction and subscription revenue, so the recurring revenue component of what we do. And that's been tracking up nicely over time, which is tied to that communications and electric utility segment that we talked about at the beginning of the presentation. So trending well, and we think a very big opportunity in the medium and long term. So just a bit about our team and the people behind Ike. A lot of words on this slide. This is our board, but I'll just pull out two of the more recent director appointments that we've made over the past 18 months. You might be familiar with Bill Morris. So Bill, he's currently a senior executive at AT&T, reports to the board and the chairman of AT&T, based here in the United States. But Bill was previously CEO of NBN Co in Australia. He's also CEO of Vodafone Australia. Prior to that, CEO of Vodafone Europe, Vodafone Japan. He was also CEO of Pacific Gas and Electric, which is one of the biggest electric utilities here in North America. So just has a really deep understanding of the industry problem that we're seeking to solve. He's been part of a number of very large growth companies. So he's on the board of Broadcom as it scaled to a multi-billion-dollar business. And he's very, very tight right now across the US communications market, and a tremendous person and very active in terms of his involvement at Ike. The second director I'll highlight is Mark Ratcliffe. So Mark was appointed at the beginning of this year. He was most recently CEO of Chorus in New Zealand, which built the fibre network in New Zealand, and prior to that was in senior leadership roles across Spark, which was formerly Telecom New Zealand. So again, a person that really understands our customer, the people that we sell to. We sell in at the executive level of these very large infrastructure companies, and Mark's someone that can really think and be the voice of the customer from our perspective. And in terms of the executive leadership, our business model is to sell directly to these very large infrastructure companies. We sell directly, we deliver directly. We're looking to create decades-long relationships in terms of how we think about the relationship side of our market. So we employ pole people and people that come directly out of this industry that really understand both the telco and the electric utility market. Just highlighting a couple of the folk on the leadership team. On the left, Norwood Keel, before joining Ike, was in a director level position at Microsoft Bing Maps, which is all about geospatial mapping, very closely tied to aspects of our solution. Chris Ronan, who leads marketing and brand, has a background across building communities and standards and other technology businesses at Dell.com and at Ford Motor Company, a range of other businesses. Southwest Airlines, where he stood up their customer blog and communications platform. So we're lucky to have some talented folk that have got very relevant experience. My background before Ike was I spent quite a number of years in the telco industry in Europe. So just to provide some more color and context around our products and what they do for a customer. Again, we talked about this diagram. On the right hand side is the detailed reports that we provide back to customers after they've sent us some raw information from the field. So this is a view into our software. You can see it's a photograph using one of our field tools of a power pole, and then we're able to dimension and annotate all of the attachments and attaches that are using that particular power pole, and it provides a pole owner with a photo verifiable record of what they have in the field, and that is a rarity for a lot of asset owners. What this flows through to is our product called Forman is one of the structural analysis software platforms that's accepted as a standard across North America. So we turn those types of verifiable photographs into digital and CAD records so that designers can make sure that a pole is structurally sound and it's not going to fall over. Also, it's going to meet code compliance in terms of where everything sits across that particular asset. Our cloud platform also lets customers see things from a macro level. So some of these communications groups have a national footprint and they're running projects across the entire United States. We give them the ability to see what's happening in particular regions and particular projects. And again, that's a unique item in terms of the Ike offering versus how they're doing business today. We also design workflow. So we've got a workflow software product that helps these customers to see what their engineers do every day. Again, hundreds or potentially thousands of people in the field every day doing engineering work to build a network. We help them to standardize what people are doing across very large footprints. And it rolls up into things like this, which really matters for our customers. So for AT&T, for instance, to attach a new piece of fiber onto a new pole, they have to apply to the person that owns the power pole. We digitize that application process. So often removing a very manual process with pen and paper, we digitize that. What it means is there's much higher accuracy, it's much faster, and it means that more permit requests are approved. In fact, that we dramatically reduce the permit rejection rate by more than 8 times, which when you add it up across a network build over many years, it makes a very profound difference in terms of speed. And the last slide is just evidencing platform utilization. The blue bars are the cumulative poll photos that have been brought through the system. So, up past 18 million poll photographs, and up past 3 million asset records that are coming through the platform today. Yeah, so I think just to summarize, we think we have a very large market opportunity. We're in the right place at the right time in terms of market tailwinds, and have some really demonstrable benefits that we can bring to these customers. It's why we're winning them. We just recently, last week, closed a $19.7 million capital raise, and we're really pleased to bring on some great new Australian funds, so Alliston, OC Funds, Regal, Pitt Capital, Maven, and we had support from all of our existing major shareholders. It's really to allow us to accelerate in terms of the way we deliver to customers that we already have on board. Will also give us some capacity to chase some new growth opportunities should they arise from an M&A perspective. So with that, I will conclude. Thanks for listening, and Simon, if you have specific questions, be happy to cover those.
Great, thanks very much, Glenn. So the first question is the US market burying any of its power like it is incurring in New Zealand, and if so, how do you see this affecting IKE?
Yeah, the US is different. It's much faster and it's much cheaper to go overhead and attach to power poles. So most of the network development is happening above ground, which differs from the Australia and New Zealand experience. There's still underground work happening in dense urban environments, but as soon as you go outside of those specific areas, this is happening predominantly overhead. And interestingly, the number of power poles across North America is growing at about 2% per annum. So there's more and more overhead assets coming into the networks.
Great. Next question. So you have about 90% of utilities open to capture, i.e. you currently have about 10% of the utilities market. Is that correct?
No, we don't have 10% of the utilities market. We've targeted, in terms of our entry into the US market, we've targeted the tier 1 asset owners and the tier 1 communications companies. So the top 15 communications companies out of 200. We have 9 of those either as a customer or in pilot programs at the moment. And we originally focused on the west coast of the United States in terms of electric utilities, and we do have all 5 of the investor-owned utilities up the west coast of the US as customers.
Great. What or who is the main competitor for the IKE Analyze platform?
Yeah, we're typically replacing historical work practices that are quite manual in terms of, particularly on the communications side, and that's a bigger barrier than it sounds. So these companies have done things a certain way for a long time, and we're often replacing manual work practices with technology. I think the broader competitive ecosystem, what we're doing uniquely is building a platform that synchronizes field tools, field software, cloud software, right through to analysis and reporting. There are some other great technology companies that either build field tools, data capture tools. They might have a mobile app. We've put it all together into a synchronized platform.
Great. Next question. Can you talk through the deal that you signed on the 17th of July a little further?
Yes, yeah, this is a national, they just described as a communications infrastructure provider. What they shared communications infrastructure provider, these are real estate companies that build the assets and lease them back to the communications companies. So they have a national footprint. They're expected to be the largest constructor of 5G networks across North America over the coming 5 years. We've worked with them for more than 18 months. Those productivity benefits that we talked about on slide 5, that they're coming directly from this customer. So we've worked with them and developed a lot of proof points over 18 months, and they've just recently announced across their business that Ike's the standard for their pole work. So yeah, it's a great milestone, but we now need to, we've got an opportunity to stand up and be a really great partner and vendor to this group, and they're just one of many players in the market. So it's really the basis for why we did the recent capital raise, and why we think we can go a lot faster from here.
Just drilling into that just a little bit further, is there any sort of understanding or outline as to what potential revenue could come from them?
Oh, we think it can be quite significant, and we haven't yet put a forecast or a number into the market. We do have a view around the top 15 communications companies. We think if we penetrated all of those 15, that there's a greater than $225 million revenue opportunity over the coming 3 to 5 years. So each of these accounts, if we're successful, is quite significant relative to where we are today.
Right, and just in terms of an M&A standpoint, what type of companies would you be looking at?
So we're looking to do more from a software perspective around the analysis and management of poles. Clearly, once we have these customers as locked in place, we want to deliver more value to them. We also want to extract more revenue per asset transaction. So we think there are opportunities to continue to extend the software stack that we have today in a way that's coherent with the needs of these customers. So it's really looking at the analysis and management of pole records.
Questions just come in. Could drone capture, i.e. something like Precision Hawk, be a threat to Ike's capture process?
Drones are really interesting, and they're part of the market. Our view is that ultimately the sensors that collect the data become relatively commoditized. Where all the value is turning raw data into pole specific engineering information. That's when you can take engineers time and cost, and you can speed up that process dramatically to meet the standards of these customers. We think that's where all the value is. That's where we focus. So drones are really interesting, and we do work around drones to just understand how they potentially fit in the process.
Great. Do you have East Coast customers, and what's the difference between East and West Coast customers?
Yeah, we do. In terms of our pole Forman product, it's used across all of Southern companies, so Georgia Power, Alabama Power, Mississippi Power. We've got Florida Power and Light, one of the very biggest. Duke Energy is a customer on the pole Forman platform. ComEd and all of the Exelon group are using the pole Forman product. So we've got some really interesting touch points into those utilities through their standards group. They're the people that decide how every pole needs to be engineered. So we've got quite privileged initial access into those customers. They are different. They're dealing with network hardening specific to hurricane events versus the West Coast folk that are building for fire mitigation, or almost the same problem, but they're going about solving it in slightly different ways.
What are the liabilities for pole failure? What are the litigation rules in the US?
Well, they vary quite significantly from state to state, but recently in California, you've seen the pretty astronomical fines for what happened across the various fire events in California over the past couple of years. But many states are looking to replicate the Californian regulatory environment around how poles need to be constructed and built. and most of them carry very substantial liability, potential liability for poles that are badly engineered and badly maintained.
Just last couple of questions. Could you provide more color on what is included in the 30% COGS? Also, what are your product development costs each year? What are your plans on staff hires over the next 12 months? And what's the environment for sales like during this COVID period?
Yeah, in terms of COVID, it did have an impact on us in Q1. We're classified as an essential business, and our industry is critical infrastructure. So the activity around maintaining networks continued. We did see the market stop while all these companies just tried to figure out how they could continue to operate, and some of them aren't particularly well set up to be remote operations because of their nature. But we've seen market activity start to accelerate again, and yeah, even Bill Morrow at the leadership level of AT&T, the one thing that they're continuing to prioritize and they want to completely catch back up is fiber and 5G construction. They see it as the last very big growth opportunity in the telco market over the next 10 years. So our customers are highly incented to keep going in terms of their projects. But COVID, the situation, as you may know, in the US is quite messy. So I think state by state and region by region, we'll see impacts. But from if we take a macro view of the United States, I think activity will continue. In terms of the question around cost of goods, we have the maintenance and delivery of the software, which is an element of our cost of goods, and we also ship our field tools, which have a more traditional cost of goods to provide those field tools to our customers, and that's what makes up our gross margin. I think was 72% last year. It had grown from 68% and 52% the year before, so it's been trending in the right direction in terms of that gross margin number.
Awesome. We've had a number of other questions come through, which I apologise we'll run out of time, and I'll make sure they do get an answer. But Glenn, thanks so much for providing a comprehensive presentation. It's been a lot of interest, and congratulations on the recent capital raising as well.
Great. Thanks, Simon. Thanks everyone for listening in.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.